So I hear a lot of people talking about moving to Atlanta, wanting to move to Atlanta, wanting to leave their current location for a lot of different reasons. I recently moved to Atlanta. I don't know if you can still call it recently, 3 years ago. So I'm gonna jump into why I moved and a couple things you really want to keep in mind if you're thinking about moving to Atlanta, how to do it, how I did it. Number one, why did I move? Four different reasons, to be honest with you. One, better job market and opportunity than where I was at. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Um, I work in tech with a lot of different tech startups, software companies. I'm a sales executive. Atlanta is the number fourth city in the nation for tech companies. Tons of just companies and investors put money into Atlanta, so it results in a lot of opportunities. Outside of that, you got a ton of companies who are headquartered down here, from the Coca-Cola, the UPS, the Deltas, a bunch of companies I could list off. A lot of colleges down here. That's the first reason. Two, diversity. Anybody who's been to Atlanta will tell you, you see a lot of people who look like me doing well, again, compared to where I'm from, which is the worst city in America for black folks. One of the most impoverished cities. Most of the people who I saw look like me weren't really doing so well. So that was good to see. That was something that I wanted my seeds to be able to see. And just a more comfortable feeling, being able to go places and I'm never an outcast, whether I'm in the suburbs, whether I'm in the city. It's people that look like me making moves and making decisions. Three, it's a fun city. Tons of different scenes and neighborhoods and events all the time. Whatever you're into, there's some down here for it. It's always something going on. I don't care if it's, dude, from the restaurants to the hookah bars to the nightclubs to the strip clubs, to the damn, if you into like the techie, gamey scene, to the hipster scene, to the entertainment. It's a fun city. Four, cost of living. Cost of living, compared to a lot of other places, is a lot lower, and people will tell you that. The cost to get a house down here or to get an apartment, the cost for gas, the cost for just food, drinks when you go out, it's a lot less in Atlanta. It's the South, and the cost of living in the South tends to be a lot lower. First thing you really want to know before you get down here, understand the area. Down here they got something called ITP versus OTP. ITP means inside the perimeter. OTP means outside the perimeter. Atlanta is basically a big circle, right? 285 is a highway that runs around the city that creates this circle. Anything inside that circle, inside the perimeter. Anything outside of that circle, outside the perimeter. Inside the perimeter, where I landed when I got down here, I landed on the north side. The north side is typically known as I guess you could say, the more affluent part of town. That's where Buckhead and which is the financial district of the Southeast, downtown, midtown, Brookhaven, Decatur. A lot of dope, fun areas are on the north side. A lot of cool Atlantic Station, Lenox Mall, shops at Buckhead, cool parks. Just a lot of shit going on up there. Bunch of new restaurants always opening, hookah bars, festivals, clubs, strip clubs, like I said before, nightlife. A lot of celebrities live on the north side. A lot of good schools and good daycares, if that's something you focused on. And it's fairly safe. There's less crime, I would say, on the north side compared to a lot of other areas. So as you're looking for where to live and where to go, keep some of those things in mind. This is all inside the perimeter on the north side. All of the tech companies, again, if you're coming down here for tech at all of the tech companies are central right there on the north side or downtown, which is essentially the north side. It is a little more expensive, I'll say. You're going to pay like twice as much for a house or twice as much for rent, depending on where you are. But there are some inexpensive places. You can find an affordable place in Brookhaven. Keep that in mind if you're looking for an affordable place on the north side. Brookhaven, Decatur, Druid Hills, Chamblee. I actually was in like Buckhead / Brookhaven, right there on the border. Had an apartment, luxury apartment for like $1,300, $1,400 a month, which is more than what I was paying where I was coming from. I was paying like $1,800 a month for a loft, so that was a pretty good deal for me. That's inside the perimeter, and then you got outside the perimeter. That's not far out. It's way outside of the city. The way it's set up down here, the suburbs are very developed. I'm talking places like Smyrna, Roswell. When I made that circle earlier, the places that are right around that circle, or maybe 1 or 2 cities out. Dunwoody, Alpharetta, Marietta, Tyrone, Lithonia. These are just some cities to look at if you want to live outside of the city. Austell. If you're right on the edge of the city in one of those neighboring suburbs, it's very much like living in the city. Again, very developed, still a lot of dope areas, festivals, cool restaurants, malls, good schools depending on where you are. Very mixed racially. That was something that was different for me where I'm from. As soon as you step outside of the city, as soon as you step outside of the perimeter limits, white, 100% white. You're an outcast. You stick out like a sore thumb. You're going to get pulled over by the police. You're going to get all type of police called on you for just driving through the neighborhood. Bunch of bullshit. I haven't had to deal with that shit at all down here because, again, it's people who look like me damn near everywhere. It is a lot less expensive once you get outside of the city. Most transients, most people who move down here, I think they take this option where they move outside of the city. You're going to commute to the city, depending on where you are. I'm right there on the neighboring city, so I'm literally like a 5-minute drive from Atlanta. I came down here and moved after about a year to buy me a house, less expensive, right there on the edge of the city. So if you're right there, it's really no difference. It can become a commute once you go further out. So look at that when you're looking at places to live. Remember that circle? How far you are from that circle is how long you're going to be driving every day. More than likely, a job is going to be in Atlanta, so you're going to be commuting. And then it gets less expensive the further you go out. So just keep that in mind when you're looking for places to live. My opinion, I would try not to go more than 2 cities out. Again, we got the circle. This is Atlanta. Here's a neighboring city. Here's another neighboring city, a city out. Here's another one, right? We keep going. I would try to keep it in these first 1 or 2 cities that's neighboring right on the edge of Atlanta. Again, just to lower your commute. I've talked to people who spent 4 hours a day in the car. 2 hours to work, 2 hours back to work. When they looked at it when they were moving down here, Google Maps said it'd be 45 minutes, but the traffic down here is dog shit. The traffic is horrible. It's notoriously some of the worst in the country. So that's another point. Have a decent car. Make sure you have a good car down here. The public transportation is, again, notoriously bad. The traffic is notoriously bad. So have a decent car. You're going to be driving quite a bit. Even if you're inside the perimeter, you're still going to spend a lot of time in your car. Third thing, secure housing and employment before you move. Not when you get down here. Not, you know what I mean? Get that shit done before you move. Set a deadline for finding a job and securing a place to live. And if it were me, I'd try to secure both a job and an apartment at least a month before you move. So if you want to move in July, try to make sure you got your job and your apartment ready to go by at least June. Hopefully, ideally earlier, but at least give yourself that month. Really big job market down here, and it's booming. Like I mentioned, a ton of new businesses opening all the time. A lot of companies headquartered down here. So really, whatever you do, whether it's more professional, whether it's more manufacturing, whether it's customer service, whether it's entertainment, whether it's entrepreneurship, there's a lot of opportunity down here for it. A lot of successful entrepreneurs and everything else I just mentioned. Use LinkedIn and apply for a lot of jobs. So I'm not talking about, hey, I'm gonna move to Atlanta, so I applied to 5 jobs. I'm talking about apply to like 20, 30 jobs. It's easy to do with things like LinkedIn, Indeed, all these different job boards. I'm gonna do another video on what my method was, and I'll show you how I did it. My timeline was like a 6-month timeline. I decided in January I'm moving to Atlanta. By July, I was down here. So I have a very solid method that worked for me, and it worked for my, at the time, girlfriend, who's now my wife. We both got jobs, apartment before we got down here. So I'm gonna do another video and I'll put the link to that video once it's done. But in short, apply to a lot of jobs, more than 5, probably more than 10, unless you get an offer. Your company that you work for, actually, if you're working now, may have opportunities down here, so I would look at that too. Be prepared to do a lot of virtual interviews, probably more than usual, because you're coming from out of state. So whereas the normal in-state candidate may have to do 3 interviews, you may be doing 4 or 5. Be ready to travel for those interviews. Be ready to travel. And I'm gonna talk about this in my other video. My strategy was I tried to schedule multiple interviews all in one trip. So I came down here again. I decided in January I was moving, spent 2-3 months applying to jobs and set interviews for like April, and came down here and knocked out 4 or 5 interviews in that 3 or 4 day span that I was down here. So try to set it up like that, unless you want to be traveling back and forth, which I wouldn't know. From my experience, the employers don't take you as seriously if you're not actually here. So if it gets to a point where you do the first interview and they say, hey, yeah, we'd love to do an in-person interview, I would try to avoid all hesitancy. I would try to avoid the, yeah, I'm out of state, I'd love to set something up, but when this is my timeline, I'm looking to get an interview set up by April. Tell them when you would like to set something up. Other point, save money. Save money. It's going to cost you to travel for those interviews I was just talking about. It's going to cost you to look for apartments, putting deposits down, new furniture if you're buying new furniture like I did, getting you a driver's license and your car registered and all that stuff when you get down here. Your car insurance may go up like mine did. Traveling back and forth to home may cost you a little more than normal. Social life, all these things you want to have some money for. You don't want to get down here, not have a place, not have a job, not have a car, and not have no money to go do nothing. My other point for you, my other piece of advice, have a moving strategy. Don't just leave it up to chance and say whoop-de-whoop gonna help you and my cousins gonna. Have an actual moving strategy. Decide on whether you want to go with a moving company or whether you want to do it by yourself. You're going to have to call, you're going to have to Google, you're going to have to look at reviews, you're going to have to get quotes, and do some research on the moving companies. There's a lot of scams and a lot of shit that go into the moving company. So I'm really cautious about that. I did it myself, but make that decision on whether you're going to get a company or do it yourself. Set deadlines on when you want to have all your things sold, donated, packed, cleaned, loaded up in the car, and when you want to hit the road. You need deadlines for every one of them. Bap, bap, bap. I'm talking about hard date deadlines. Otherwise, that shit will just start floating all over the place. Get rid of all your unnecessary belongings. So them pair of shoes or them 6-7 pair of shoes you ain't worn in 6 months, you might want to think about getting rid of them. Or that kitchen table that don't nobody sit at, it's just paper and homework sitting on it, you might want to get rid of that. Look around your house and look at things that you don't use a lot. And when you start packing, if it's something that's dusty and you ain't pulled it out and you saying, oh damn, I ain't seen this in a year, get rid of that shit. The way I did it was I literally sold everything that I could sell. Things that weren't easy to put in the car, because the way I came down here was just 2 cars. I threw everything I could in those cars, boxes, damn it, whatever furniture could fit, whatever I didn't take, it got sold. I would definitely try to do it that way. And I got down here and just bought all new furniture. There's some downside to that too. It kind of sucked having to like go get all new furniture the day I got down here. But if you're smart, you can set it up where you order those things from your hometown and get them shipped down here to land exactly on the day you touch down. That worked out pretty well for me. Finally, prepare for the weather. If you don't know, it's warm year round down here. It get chilly from like mid-January to late February. And then the rest of the year is super nice. Like I can remember multiple days in January where I just was walking outside with a t-shirt on, no problem. It barely ever snows. It rains more than anything in the winter months. The summers are hot as f***. They call it hot Atlanta for a reason. I learned that when I got down here. You can't really prepare for that. You can't really dress for the summers down here. It's gonna be hot. You can go outside butt naked if you want to, and you're gonna be steaming hot. It's hot down here, uncomfortably hot. You're just gonna have to get used to it. If you from a cold place like I'm from, your winter gear, you're not gonna need it as much. You may want to bring some of it, but I can tell you, like, I've worn my actual winter coat probably 4, maybe 5 times in the 3 years that I've been down here. Barely any of my jackets or hoodies get worn like that. So that's something to keep in mind, depending on where you're coming from. Last thing I'm gonna touch on is my actual timeline from when I decided I was moving to when I actually touched down here. I'll briefly go over that. It took me 7 months total overall. I made a decision in January that I wanted to move. This was years ago. I started applying for jobs February through June. I started searching for and contacting apartments April through June. I finally secured an apartment by June because my deadline was July. I wanted to move by July. So by June, I secured an apartment. I secured a job like a week before I was set to move, which was cutting it really close. I had a bunch of prospects lined up and ended up moving forward on an offer a week before I got down here. And then late July, touchdown, moved myself in, got acclimated, got situated. Now I'm doing good. And bought me a crib out here. I've really been doing my thing. Those are some things you want to keep in mind if you're thinking about moving down here, man. It's definitely worth it, I would say, regardless of where you're coming from, for those 4 reasons I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Fantastic job market, fun city, a lot of diversity, and the cost of living is low compared to a lot of other places. So, like, subscribe, share, comment, spread the knowledge, spread the word, let your people know. It is what it is, baby. Holla at me.